Hey, good morning. This is Keith from Keith Greer Coaching. Hope you're all doing well. I wanted to spend a few minutes with you today talking about the concept of being strength-based. If you are like me, you have spent a great deal of time in your life challenged by that wonderful self-critic that is in our head. It's that voice of the status quo, that voice that tells us don't reach out, don't try anything outside of our comfort zone. It's the voice that tells us if we do stretch out and do something new, that something bad is going to happen. And I find myself as a coach very curious about that voice, both with myself and with the people that I work with. And so a number of years ago, I started asking my clients to do a very specific activity. So what would be your guess? If you and I walked up to about 50 random people on the street and we gave them 2 pieces of paper, and on this piece of paper, we said, please make a list of all of your strengths, talents, skills, positive attributes, positive characteristics. And on this piece of paper, make a list of all of the things that you believe hold you back, your unresolved issues, just the kinds of challenges that keep coming up in your life and prevent you from being the person that you want to be. So my experience has been, and the experience of many people I've worked with, has been that most people can whip off that negative list a little bit quicker. In fact, I've started to call it your suck list. Just the items that hold you back. And again, as a coach, I find myself incredibly curious about what are some of the narratives in our larger culture that send most of us from childhood to adolescenthood to adulthood, totally in touch with our suck list. But if you ask somebody to start listing all of their positive strengths and talents, usually they will look at you, shuffle their feet, look down, look a little bit embarrassed, and tell you that they're fearful of boasting. I am not talking about boasting. I am talking about knowing what I would say, what you bring to the party, what is in your toolbox. I also am curious about this because I have come to believe in all of my work through the years that there's a second voice in our head along with that self-critic, and that's the voice of our intuition. But the language of our intuition needs to be positive and strength-based. And again, my curiosity kicks up as to how many of us have lost touch with that voice somewhere as we've traveled towards adulthood. So the only voice left in our head is that negative self-critic. So I want to issue you a challenge that I issue most of the people that I work with. Sit down and create a list of your personal strengths, talents, skills, positive attributes, positive characteristics, your gifts to the world, so to speak. But here's the kicker. That list needs to have as many items on it as you are old. Now, I already know from my experience that any of you who are listening to this who are older than 10 are rolling your eyes and are saying, Keith, there's just no way that I'm going to be able to accomplish that. And it's that reaction specifically that I have become most curious about. What are the messages many of us get as we head through adolescenthood and into adulthood that tell us it is not okay to know what we bring to the party? Now, here are some guidelines for doing this list. If you struggle coming up with a list with as many items on it as you are old, phone a friend, call people who love you. They will tell you what is wonderful about you. If you come up with some items and that wonderful self-critic immediately kicks in and you hear this voice in your head that says, well, that's not you all the time, put that item on the list. There's no rule that says we need to be able to exemplify every single one of our strengths 100% of the time. And the last thing I would invite you to do is, if you struggle with this, and you most likely will, do not allow the struggle to become another item on your suck list. This is a place where, as a coach, I invite you to dig into your own curiosity of what makes coming up with a list of strengths, positive attributes, positive characteristics so challenging for you. What are those voices and messages we have gotten through the years that have cut us off from our intuition, which is the source, the home of our internal wisdom, and then allows us to be subject to the voices that come from outside of us, many of which through our lives, while they might be well-meaning, could be either judgmental or at the very least are not our own voice. Give this a try and let me know how it goes for you.